of what has been an extremely long year. And I am thankful for that. The fall leaves are starting to fall here in Kentucky and starting to get some milder temperatures here. And so it's starting to feel like fall, which I absolutely love. So I'm joined today by Dr. Jennifer Rivera and Dr. Gabriella Haynes. And so we are the three docs today. They get to do Answers News, which we love. And so we do have a couple of events coming up that I want to make you aware of. Well, one now and one I'll talk about later. And that is our Answers for Pastors and Leaders Conference. So that is officially next week. And it's not just for pastors and leaders. It's really for anyone who really wants to learn more about this year's topic, which is the Bible and sexuality. So practical answers for today's world. So really helping us understand, like I've seen, I mean, if you look at the titles of some of the presentations, and I've talked to some of the presenters, it's really going to be that practical, how do we engage, right? How do we talk to people who are dealing with the, sins of homosexuality and transgender and all of those kinds of things, and even talking about the proper place of sexuality within marriage. And so I think there's really going to be something for everybody and something that we can truly find useful. So you'll want to check that out. It's October 6th through the 8th at the Answer Center at the Ark Encounter is where we'll have it. And there'll be plenty of time if you want to explore more, explore the Ark, explore the Creation Museum during that time. The afternoons are available for that. So, and the Benham brothers, in case you haven't heard of them, they used to have a show, they tried to have a show on HGTV, but then because of their stance against homosexuality, they weren't allowed to, and so they're going to be there as well on Tuesday evening, I believe, giving a presentation. So it's going to be a really great time. So still have spots for that left, so you can go to answersforpastors.org. And if you can't make it back for the conference, since you're already here today, if you're in our audience, we are going to be streaming it on our streaming platform, answers.tv. So if you have a subscription to that, you can watch that. And it's a great platform. It's what, $39?
Yeah, it's only $39 for the entire year. And you have access to all the answers in Genesis, as well as Living Waters, and even some, Bob Jones University special presentations are on there as well. And
it has things for every age, so kids and everything.
You can, put your child in front of it and walk away and not have to worry about what they may watch. So
not like Netflix or some of those other ones. So it's really nice to be able to have that. And there's over 2,000 videos on there currently, and we keep adding more all the time. So encourage you to go to answers.tv to find that. And I might mention too, we have a wonderful studio audience with us today. So make yourselves known. Come on, let's hear it. Yay. So, all right. So we're going to go on to our first article. And our first article is always a fluff article, all right? Because news is serious enough, right? We need to have some fun one. So, frozen fecal knives honored by 2020 Ig Nobel Prizes. Okay. So the Ig Nobel Prizes are different from the real Nobel Prizes. Okay, these are given out every year, and they've been doing this for a number of years. I've followed them for a long time, and they really are funny. So they are fake, Nobel Prizes that are given for real scientific research that's been done and published. Okay,
yes.
Keep that in mind.
That's the problem. It was published.
In a real scientific journal.
And research dollars were spent on it.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Exactly.
But yeah, so they actually used fecal matter and tried to use that as a knife, and were discovered that it was not very effective.
Yeah. Right. Especially if they're cutting anything that is hot.
Well, and you think that can't possibly be a real article. It is, because I remember we did it on Answers News earlier this year or late last year, just kind of as a funny article. Like, I can't believe that people would do this. The reason they did it is because they think Native American Indians or some group somewhere used to do this.
They have used it in the past. So.
And they found them not to be effective, surprisingly. So.
Yeah. Or the one who was awarded because he was an American researcher who collected evidence on many entomologists that are afraid of spiders, even though spiders are not really insects. So important distinction there.
Yeah, very important. So,
or my favorite one, for diagnosing a long unrecognized medical condition, misophonia, which is the distress at hearing other people make chewing sounds. Okay, so some people are like, "Oh yeah, that's me," right? Because there are people, I know people that are like that, and I would say they probably have this misophonia.
But they did, if they were an award recipient, they did get a printable, foldable cube that said they were the winner, and they could print it at home. So, yeah.
So
Really
you get,
funny.
I think you get like $10 trillion or something like that. Of course, not really, right? You get it in some sort of, you get a paper cube and a note for $10 trillion, not actual $10 trillion, of course. And it's in some other type of money even, not even American money. So yeah, all fake, but pretty funny. All right, so we need to have those, especially this year. Okay, Pelosi on wildfires in California and the West. Mother Earth is angry. All right, so she must be very angry.
She's angry again, I like to say, because she's angry often.
Yep, yeah. And so they're blaming climate change or global warming for basically what is happening in California with all of the fires there.
Yeah, well, she's using a logical fallacy right here to argue that point, because it's called reification, where she's using something like Earth, it's not a mom, and it's just like, it's just a concept that just, the idea, it's not actually a person to be a mom. So it's just easy sometimes when you don't have good arguments to use logical fallacy, and that's here like something that we all should study a lot. It's about logical fallacy, because we read those papers, we see so many, like we're going to have more papers there, logical fallacy. It's something that sounds good, sounds right, but it has no reason behind it.
And as we were saying earlier, the issue really is that they're not taking precautions to prevent the spread of the wildfires because of the agenda, especially in California. Because there are many ways that you can prevent this from occurring.
At such a massive scale.
Something called grazing, where you can actually remove a lot of the bushes that are very flammable, or you can even plant bushes that are anti-flammable to help stop the spread of fires. You can clean up the brush and things like that. There are measures to take, but they're not. Because the plants take priority,
plants and animals take priority
over to humans,
people.
And what their needs are. And so that's the big issue here.
And that's the problem. I mean, that's the really sad part, is a lot of this could be avoided if there was just proper land management. And taking, if they want to talk about Mother Earth, then they need to take better care of Mother Earth. And again, they don't even really have a foundation for taking care of the earth, right? So from a biblical perspective, we do, because we were given dominion, people were given dominion over the land to take care of it. So we have that foundation, but evolutionists and people that are not Christians honestly don't. Even though they do, they're borrowing, they don't realize they're borrowing from the biblical worldview to do that. So let's see. Oh, I saw somebody said on here what do they say here? Something about being all ladies today. So that's the A team.
Oh yeah, someone said
Yeah, we agree. We always say we have A, B, and C teams. So,
all women scientists panel today. Yay.
Okay, Buffalo school system teaching students to question the nuclear family as part of BLM integrated curriculum. And so in Buffalo, New York, has integrated BLM basically propaganda into their curriculum, which basically questions, and we've seen this now a few times, questions the importance of the nuclear family. And when I read that, the first thing I think is this is truly what we call a Genesis 3 attack on the family, right? Because God created the family as the most fundamental foundational unit, and it is to be revered, right? And it is something that is to be for in our society. I mean, that is the best way, because it's God's way. But what's happening is, Satan's saying, did God really say? I mean, is that really what you should be doing? Is a nuclear family really the best, right? And getting people to question, whether they realize it or not, God's word and God's creation in that.
And they're using the kids because it's like third, fourth,
second, third, fourth, fifth graders.
They're using the kids to make them against their parents, and also to indoctrinate them to be against all the idea of family. And like, what is going to come from that? Which good is going to come from that when you destroy the family, when you destroy the principles of a family, of honoring your mom and dad and the family and your siblings and everything? Why do you think that it's going to come from that?
Right. You're going to have total chaos in society because that is the most fundamental unit.
Now, they did say they have pulled the curriculum lesson, which you can actually still get on Fox News. They still have the actual lesson that the teachers download. It tells them how many minutes to spend on each topic. And this is interesting. It tells the teacher to spend about 20 minutes on the vocabulary to teach the lesson. And so in that section, they have the Black Lives Matter Declaration on Black Villages. And it says, we are committed to disrupting the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages that collectively care for one another.
Yeah. It's this whole idea of it, it takes a village, right? And I'm not saying you don't have family and friends and others that feed into the lives of your children.
Yeah, grandparents and aunts and uncles.
Right.
And
we would hope that you do,
relatives,
but that doesn't change. That should not change the basic structure of our society, which is founded on the family, right? And because that's God's original design. And so, yeah.
Most of those movements, the only thing that they do is attack and destroy, attack and destroy. They do not build anything. They're just attacking and destroying everything that they can.
And they know they have to discredit that parental influence. They have to make kids believe that their parents and whatever their viewpoints are or their ideology or their belief system is not what's best for what they actually call, it's propaganda is what it is.
They try to kill the kids. When they can't kill the kids, murder the kids, they indoctrinate them.
Yeah. Well, that's the best place to start, right? Is when they're really young and get them really young and get them to believe these ideas. So, but it's good though that at least it was acknowledged that this was happening and it was removed. Supposedly.
At least from the published New York.
Right.
Whether it's still occurring in the classroom, parents have to be monitoring what their students are learning. And we've always said that over and over again. It's so apparent that if your kids are in the homeschool, in the public school system, especially if they're homeschooling right now, that you are paying attention to what your children are being taught.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Is it time to decolonize your lawn? All right.
Our husband's going to be happy with that.
We've reached a new level. Realm, I don't know what. But now, apparently, it is wrong to mow your lawn.
Yes.
Right? Because that is a sign of colonialism and a sign of oppression of Black people and, that whole concept that, of Europeans taking over the United States or what became the United States. And so they're saying that in the name of climate change and in the name of indigenous rights, don't mow your lawn.
Because it hurts the planet, they said, and it's environmental hostility to mow your lawn. Yes, environmental hostility.
Yeah, because because they say you're taking away ecological diversity, right, by mowing your lawn. Well, they cite no studies, 0 studies to show that you're actually decreasing the ecological diversity. So I would like to see some studies to show that that's actually the case, because chances are if animals are not welcome one area, they will just move to another.
And really, it's not about just mowing your lawn either. It's like they don't want you to have a manicured lawn. Like you can't even plant certain grass, that may be more aesthetic or easier to take care of because you're removing the diversity that should be there, in different types of plants and things that may. But like we were saying, what happens when you don't mow your lawn? What moves in when you don't mow your lawn?
Ticks, chiggers. People potentially, all kinds of things can hide in grass. Like that's not a good thing. I live out in the country and believe me, I am mowing my lawn. Yeah. We have field areas where animals and things can go in, but I don't want a snake up near my door. Okay.
No. Because you have kids. We all have kids. Like we don't want that to our kids.
Right.
And they get ticks and they get red bugs.
And even like for example, if we don't mow our lawn, like even our kids can hide there when they get in trouble. Right. So,
so this is what they recommended though. If you do have children, they said to mow your lawn in patches. So they said mow a patch, and the kids can play on this patch, and then in 2 weeks you mow this other patch, and you move the equipment, and you move your picnic table, or whatever, to this newly mowed patch. And
it's like you can tell your kid just stay here and they're going to obey.
Stay in the nice patch.
No.
Well, and they even say this, and so evolution, sneaks its way in here too, because it says, speaking of plants, right? One of the ladies they interviewed said, our teaching is that those are our relatives and that we belong to the land. All right, so plants are our relatives. So, who wants to go chopping the heads off your relatives, right? So don't mow your grass because you're hurting your relative, right, by doing that. I mean, that's literally what they're saying in this article.
Yeah. I mean,
it's crazy.
But this is the idea. Here it says like where the laws come from. It's from the property ownership mentality. It's the idea that you cannot do that in your property. It's always this idea that you don't have the right to have things. And that's a big problem. That's a big problem.
Well, you can see the socialism, the communism sort of coming into, whoever thought you'd be talking about that in relation to mowing your lawns. Yeah. But that's where we are today, One of the quotes in here, again, another quote just kind of blew me away. It says, okay, so this is talking about weeds. These unknown plants, meaning the weeds, that you think are all weeds, but when you actually get to know them, they have their own stories and are as wonderful as any other plant.
They think they don't.
Has anyone actually sat outside with their weeds and talked to their stories?
How many of you have conversations with the weeds in your yard? I mean, they are your relatives, I guess. But I just what? I'm not going to go out. I mean, we have wild chicory that grows. Okay, I'll go talk to the chicory and make sure it's okay. I mean, it just gets absurd, right? This is what we're dealing with. And somebody on here said, well, the Europeans did colonize the United States. You cannot change that fact. Well, true, you can't. Yeah. That's what happened, I mean,
and guess what? Not me, because I'm from Brazil, but I have some other genes. But people that was born here, we also have genes from the European, and we're gonna change that?
Yeah, yeah.
We can't.
You can't change history, so you have to deal. And we're going to talk about this too in our next article that deals with this as well. And it said, now Charles Darwin gets canceled. Natural History Museum will review offensive exhibitions about the father of evolution because HMS Beagle's Galapagos voyage was colonialist. All right, so here we go again. And so basically the Natural History Museum in Britain is looking at reviewing potentially offensive collections because they were collected when people went to other countries and tried to colonize them.
Which a lot of our discoveries and things were because people, went out on scientific expeditions, and that has to be funded by somebody, and there has to be a certain amount of money and investment in that, and a lot of that
even
did
now
come from
that's what we do.
Right.
When we do research, that's what we do.
You look for people to fund you, and it has nothing to do with colonialism, right? It's just scientific research.
But what they're trying to do is just like create a space with no diversity, no room for talking about, because we can learn from bad things too, right? And we can understand and discuss about something, but what they want is just like create a world that it's not real. It's just the way that they think. It's a world that it's based on their view, and nobody else is welcome.
Right.
Nothing else is welcome but their own
But
view.
the danger is they want to rewrite the history, and that's
hide it
it's
or
historical
delete it.
fact, right? And we'll just get rid of it and we'll just hide it like as if it was never there. But
somebody said, so they are worried about his voyage as being racist, yet do they address his writing that is purely horrifically racist? And that's the thing. This is mainly focusing on things that were collected or might have some, relationship to colonialism, while not. And they do talk in this article a little bit. And I wanted to bring out two things, some pictures. So one of the things they mentioned is a picture of paintings that were done in Hence Hall, which is in the Natural History Museum. So this is a picture of that ceiling.
This is on the ceiling, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the ceiling. Okay, so it's kind of hard to see, but there's paintings of different plants there, right? There's nothing describing it. I mean, maybe there is down on floor level, but it's just pictures of different plants that someone drew. And they said because some of those are cotton, tea, and tobacco, and those were colonial exports, they need to paint this over. Should be gone.
And you know how many years of history it's going to be erased? It's going to go with that?
Yeah. The museums are going to have nothing left, is what's going to end up happening. That's what I think. Then they want to get rid of the statues. This is a picture of me beside the statue of Charles Darwin at the Natural History Museum in Oxford, England, which is sort of an offshoot of the big museum that's in Britain itself. But again, so they want to do away with this now, which he's the icon of evolution, right? But they're willing to do away with it now because, and they do say that he and Thomas Henry Huxley, who was known as Darwin's bulldog, because they talked about races of human beings. So finally, we're getting down to where we need to get down to.
I hope that they're gonna do that in the books in school.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt he was extremely racist.
Yes.
Darwin was,
Yeah. And so it's, I'm not for pulling down statues or doing all this.
Right.
We're not saying that. We're not endorsing that. But we just think it's very inconsistent of people to say they want to cancel all these people and pull their statues down. And yet Darwin's he provided a scientific basis for racism, essentially. And yet he's like one of the last ones now to be canceled. So it's just kind of interesting from that perspective. Okay. Oh, and somebody says, so then we should have no more T-shirts, no more cotton, T-shirts.
Yeah, someone just mentioned it, so we can't wear cotton clothes. Is this cotton?
Yeah, I know.
I'm in trouble now.
Yeah, that's the problem. You can't be consistent with it, right? All right. Moving on. Cave bear mummy discovered in Siberia still has its internal organs, fur, and black nose. So up to this point, we have not found any cave bears kind of in this condition.
Right, just skulls and
but this is
this is
really
amazing.
cool.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a paleontologist.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. And the thing is, yes, it's amazing to see something like that. And it was the age that it's dated using the evolutionaries' ideas. It's about 25 to 20,000 years ago. But we have a lot of organic material still preserved and fossils that they're dated in 120 million years old, 200 million years old, because they didn't take that long, of course. So that's why you're going to find some of the things. But they keep talking when we see in the papers, oh, this is very rare to find. And no, it's not rare. It's just because they never really looked for them because they believed that it was not possible to find them. So now they're trying to open up a little bit more, and then they're finding everything. Honestly, any fossil that you can see, most of the fossils you're going to find organic material preserved. Most of them.
Because they were buried during the Noah's flood just a few thousand years ago. So it hasn't really been that long. So of course, and actually this is a really cool outcome of climate change. I mean, if we're going to talk about the climate changing and things warming up, permafrost melts. And so you can find these types of things, and we can discover more about these organisms of the past. One of the things they say is that this died out during the last glacial maximum. It died out during the only glacial maximum. The only
After
one
the
that
flood,
occurred, the one ice age that occurred after the flood. And there were cave bears. It is a distinct type of bear that we don't have around anymore. So this is great. We can learn more about it.
And it's kind of neat too, because you can see its teeth, right? Especially in the picture there. And
Yeah.
they say they believe
Kinda
it was,
creepy,
primarily vegetarian. And it just shows, that just because we see teeth like that doesn't mean that they were meat eaters or carnivores. It probably was mostly vegetarian, as most bears are
That's
today.
what the Bible says.
Somebody asked how long a protein can survive. We don't really know for sure, but certainly not for millions of years.
No.
I'll tell you that much. We know, I mean, it depends on the conditions that it's in, how long it can survive. That is part of it. And so if something's buried quickly and rapidly, like it was in the flood, then those can survive a while because of the conditions under which they remain, if it remains like that.
And that's one of the main conditions for you to find fossil. It has to be buried very fast, very quickly. And I did not get this information from any book, any creation book. I got this information from my settler books in university. That's the main condition. You have to have a very rapid, quick. I'm scared of this rain.
Yeah.
It has to be buried, really fast. So.
Or it doesn't remain like that, so to speak. Yeah. All right, EEOC, which is the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, sues Kroger over religious discrimination issue involving LGBT emblem. So basically what happened, so this is good news. The EEOC is filing against Kroger's because two of their employees in Arkansas were basically fired because they refused to wear an apron that had a LGBT emblem on it. And so they refused to wear it, which was good because they said this violates our religious beliefs. And they even said, hey, we'll make accommodations. We'll wear an
we'll
apron.
cover it up. Right. We'll,
Right.
you know, wear
cover
a
it
different
up
apron.
or we'll wear something else. They refused and they fired them as a result of this. And so they're being sued for this now.
And they did say Kroger launched a 2020 Pride campaign. So apparently that's part of the agenda.
And the thing is, what they want us, as you were saying, Dr. Georgia, it's they want us to not only respect, to endorse. You have to endorse, you have to praise, you have to be honored to wear whatever they want you to wear or to do whatever they want you to do. So all those movements, what they're creating is just no diversity, no inclusion, no nothing. It just, I want this way and it's going to be this way.
And they say they're all inclusive and all this, but yet if you disagree with them, they're extremely discriminatory.
Well, it said, they said, the Kroger company said, we embrace diversity and inclusion. No, you don't.
No.
Only of the people that you believe are right.
Right.
Not everybody, not the Christians, obviously, or you wouldn't be being sued for this. And so, but we see this over and over again, but it's good to see things like this.
And I hope they get a positive result from this. It'll be interesting to follow and see what the court ruling is on that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, are humans still evolving? Scientists weigh in. So this is looking at, are humans basically going to evolve, I guess, continue evolving into something else via the idea of natural selection and survival of the fittest? And they asked 12 different experts, and I don't know who they were.
Because they never say who the experts are. Right.
Yeah. Freaking what? I'm not sure.
It's another logical fallacy. It's appeal to authority. Because those experts are saying that something is true, it is true. No.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean anything.
So we don't know, but it says that they would say that they said that humans are still evolving.
And I thought it was really interesting. They say in bold, almost at the beginning of the article, evolution is not the same thing as natural selection.
Well, that's refreshing to hear.
I think we've heard all of our speakers say that many times, right? That they are not the same thing. So I was like, oh, okay, they're going to differentiate between the two, because really that's what science has shown us and the study of genetics has shown us, is that they're not the same thing.
Right.
But no, that's not the case.
But then all throughout the rest of the paper, they equivocate evolution with natural selection.
Right.
Even though they say it's not the same thing, then they turn around and do it.
Which is another fallacy too.
Yeah.
When you use the same word with different meaning, just to kind of lead to what you want.
Yeah, and I mean, natural selection, evolutionists should consider natural selection a mechanism, right, for allowing evolution to occur. That's really what they would technically, or should technically define it as. Mutation is the same, because mutation and natural selection are the two main mechanisms for Darwinian evolution. And they would say, for example, they said over time the human population became faster at running. That's evolution. No, that's not evolution, because evolution is descent with modification. It's one kind of organism evolving into a different kind of organism, right? This is not. Humans are still humans. They're just running faster, right? Maybe not.
Maybe not.
I can't run anymore.
I don't think anybody was recording how fast a human ran digitally.
I can't run anymore. Not even
walk. And then, of course, they had to get, there were a lot of the examples that they used were not even really scientific. So they said, humans lose the ability to digest milk when they stop breastfeeding. Right. So they said, we stopped making an enzyme called lactase, all right? So they said, because of that, we must have, evolved, right, the desire, I guess, to start drinking milk so that we could digest it, right? We thought, wow, I want to drink milk.
But that's not how evolution works.
Right, it doesn't make any sense.
Evolution doesn't say, oh, look, there's this need, I'll evolve this to do this.
Evolution is a concept. It's not a person.
Right. It doesn't think. It doesn't have a consciousness.
Yeah, it doesn't have a conscience. It doesn't have a purpose. It doesn't have a will.
Right. It can't be forward thinking, so to speak, in that sense, because it doesn't think. It's just random mutations that happen that may or may not be beneficial in the environment that an organism is in. That's evolution, okay? And so they're not even going along with the basic, there's lots of contradictions in this article. They're not going along with the basic ideas of how evolution works, okay?
Because it doesn't work.
Well, they're seeing the evidence, and they're saying the evidence doesn't fit how evolution normally works, so we'll just change the definition of evolution to make the evidence fit, right? I mean, that's what they're doing all throughout this paper. And even one example they use, again, it just stuns me how they get away with this stuff. The Bahau people in Southeast Asia spend a lot of their time diving, and so they did ultrasound imaging and showed that these people have larger spleens than their neighbors, an adaptation which allows them to stay underwater for longer. All right, so they're looking at adults or maybe teens that have done this. They're not looking at newborn children to show they have larger spleens, right? It's probably because they are diving and the body is
in that behavior, and their body's adapting to that.
Exactly.
The pressure of diving.
Adaptation.
Exactly. That's not evolution.
No.
That's not changing a genetic aspect that's passed on to children. It's just they're adapting to the environment that they're in, basically, and that's a good thing, right? God designed our bodies and humans to be able to do those kinds of things, and that's a very good thing. People that live at high altitudes have differences in their hemoglobin and have other things that allow them to live at high altitudes better. But if they go to lower altitudes for a period of time, that goes away because that's just an adaptation. It's not a genetic change. It's being passed on from generation to generation.
I mean, even here near the end, they try to equate the genetic changes that we see between generations as evidence that evolution is still occurring. Well, we're all still human, right? I may look different from my grandparents, but they were humans and I'm a human, right?
Right.
It's like that you may see differences, but we're all still just humans.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. All right, and somebody said on here, they said, I've never been a good runner. I guess I'm less evolved. And so, yeah, I mean, what's the outcome of that kind of thinking?
This person says, so I eat too much, so my big belly evolved. He says, I'm not fat, I evolved.
That's a good idea.
We can apply that to a lot of things for sure. All right, our last article again, so we're going to leave you on some good news because that's a good thing to do. American Sign Language Bible translation completed after 39 years. So they now have the entire Bible in sign language, which is so incredibly cool. And I want to show you as we talk about this a little bit. So I went to the website and downloaded one of the videos of, actually this is Genesis 1, or a portion of Genesis 1. So you can see it actually being signed, okay? So there's no sound, obviously. And so this is just an intro to the Bible. And so then they'll see the passage appear on the screen and him talking about it. So deaf people need something that is much more visible eyesight. And one of the things they made the comment here, it says that for most people that are deaf, it's hard for them to read. And because they learn to read, how can you learn to read what you cannot hear? Right? And I never thought about that before. But Calvin Farley, who's a deaf speaker for Answers in Genesis, he said that a lot of deaf people don't read very well. And I thought, why? Because they have eyes, right? But it's because
they can't hear the
sound.
Yeah. Right. If you think about when you first, learned to read, or I remember I taught my first daughter to read at home, and I would have her sound out the consonants and the vowels.
Right.
And if she can't hear me say it correctly, and it makes sense that if you don't know what it sounds like, it's going to be very difficult to read.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just amazing now. They've been working on this with Deaf Missions, who works with Answers in Genesis, when we have our Deaf Days here, which are coming up, actually, in just a couple of weeks. And we have sign language interpreters on site that day that can help our guests understand the exhibits. And we have our deaf speaker, Calvin Farley, who signs his entire presentation. And we
have special staff here as well that can sign and help direct people to where they need to go.
Yeah. So one day here at the museum and one day at the Ark. And so you can find out more by going to deafanswers.org. And so this is just sign language is truly its own language. It has syntax, it has grammar, it has all those things you expect of a language. And so it's great to see that now deaf people can be reached with the Word of God. So that's an amazing, good thing, good use of technology and all that we can have in our world today. So, all right, so we're out of time for today. So we'll see you back on Wednesday.